Hi, I'm Tima Ouzden, Student Engagement Manager at Tashkeel, and welcome to Tashkeel Talks. Today I'm joined by Behnoosh Feiz, Jalal bin Thaneya, Gosia bin Unen, and Chafa Ghaddar, and we're going to talk about the effect the pandemic is having on their artistic practices. So I would probably like to open with a question to Shafa. As Shafa was preparing for her solo show to open when the quarantine happened, and maybe ask her how is she using this time to think about her practice or art in general. How are you spending your time?
Hello, everyone. So I could say that I've been kind of been grieving like a disruption of a certain momentum I'm in. It's true that I'm a home person. I know how to be at home. I love it. I love to work from home, but there has been a sense of a huge disruption that made me at first think that probably everything has to shift to something else, and on a deeper level even like almost questioning like the point of what I was doing, if it will still be valid, perceived, lived and communicated the same way after the pandemic would take us back to a certain normality. So my preparations were disrupted, but my ideas and my feeling towards my practice and work has been shaken in a way, because I am at the moment where I was about to deliver something that will be communicated to others, but I'm strongly like believing that those others' reality and normality and the context of the world that we live in, and therefore the art as well, is not going to be the same. So I was trying to keep in my mind the enthusiasm, the skeleton of having a show that will live on after the pandemic. Yet I am very much kind of forcing myself, or even like trying to to really reflect on how this thing has to be uh, changed in a way, because nothing is the same afterwards. And so for example, I was finding very much difficulties to produce while thinking that I have an exhibition or I have a deadline to meet, because all this atmosphere of being efficient, having to produce, meeting a certain deadline for me was kind of evaporating and very vulnerable. And I was more going and leaning towards doing something that is extremely honest and extremely intimate, and that has nothing to do with anything outside the entity of myself and my house. So that's why I went for writing. I've been writing more than anything else. Sometimes I have some trials to do a drawing, but yet it's more difficult. And I mean, I also have to mention that I'm busy with my family, raising up a 10 months baby, taking care of a house. So um, I love the enthusiasm that is existing everywhere about, like a kind of information invitation to watch things and listen to things, and like almost be showered by all sort of art and culture. But for myself, it's not been a space to only be a receiver of this, but more of one with a certain crisis of like, what will happen to this show, not to this existence, but to its ideas. I have a practice that is very much focused on time, on temporalities, on certain notions of before and after, on trace. And I feel like those notions and those themes, they are very much affected by what's happening. And I just have to like um, digest what I'm going through, what is happening around us, and maybe possibly pour it again in the body of work, or possibly a new body of work that would hopefully find its place in the show afterwards. So it's been a difficult time, but a good one, because I feel like being in a difficult place is a good thing, and hopefully that this virus would have done some good things to us after all.
Thank
I
you,
hope I answered, because I blah 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 blah.
I'm wondering if anyone else found themselves doing something different within their practice, like Chafa has been writing. Jalal mentioned he picked up a guitar again. Does anyone want to share what kind of part of their practice they maybe like activated or left behind, or putting more focus on? Who wants to go next?
I could say a few words. Some time ago, well, actually recently, I started experimenting with resin, and trying also to be a little bit more grounded in the day-to-day activity, more experimenting than creating art. What Chafa said exactly. We are unsure of what is going to happen to the larger series, larger bodies of work. So in this situation, I decided to create small resin pieces, encasing bits and pieces of my memories in it, bits and pieces of rock, bits and pieces of sand, plant matter, and some computer elements. All of these elements are parts of my larger practice, but they can be seen as jewelry accessories that resulted as an experiment. So this is something that I've been trying to do, as well as I started working on my second book that is related to the landscape evolution, this time from the UAE. It is somehow easier to work with a subject matter that is matter of fact and a little bit scientific. It gives you a grounding. With a matter of creativity, it's always more complicated. I have enough material to work with for the next 10 years, but you have to have a peace of mind and a certain motivation. I'm usually pretty good creating this motivation within myself, but it needs a bit more time. And this pandemic and the lockdown, which is unlike the voluntary lockdown that most artists enjoy, I'm quite sure we are all actually used to being alone in the studio, working, being only with our own thoughts and our own project. But it is a voluntary activity. If this one has been kind of thrust on us, and because of that, it takes time to kind of find your own way, new activities and new ways of dealing with surplus of time and a disruptive day affected by family members that are also affected. So, but again, these little bits and pieces that I've been doing, they have been quite enjoyable, and so at least something.
That's wonderful news about your book, Gosia. I'm very excited already. And I'm wondering, it's a question for all of you, what kind of rituals maybe is making you feel somehow grounded, whether it's creative rituals or just doing something that's, it feels like we're all like thrown up in the air and kind of floating. So we do need to find things that we do every day that makes us feel grounded and enable us, to take care of ourselves and families in our practices. So I'm curious if maybe Behnoosh or Jalal would like to share.
Yeah, I can say a few words to that. With regards to your previous question, what happened to me after this pandemic, I was working as well on a project for Sharjah Art Biennale, and I was really under pressure up to that, and I didn't know how to finish it. I was really under pressure, and I have to say that that was a relief for me to stop And I didn't know, I haven't been even aware of that, how much pressure I had at that time. So as that happened and I had to start with that project, so my mind was all over, but not on creating art for the first 2-3 weeks. And I realized that I had a lot of tasks that I have been procrastinating, me as a big procrastinator. So really easy, simple task, doing, task doing at home, like very simple, cleaning up my cupboards, going through every single cupboard, every single chest of drawers, and sorting things out, clearing things, letting go of things. That really, really helped me the first 2 to 3 weeks to just clear my mind. Psychologically, it was very necessary for me, and I haven't been even aware of that.
I've kind of done the same actually in the first couple of weeks, which is, yeah, like I condoed my whole house, I think, and from, every drawer, everything, throwing, keeping, giving. So it's, I guess it's our way of maybe retaining a sense of control. It's kind of like the only thing we can control. It's, what's inside our house, and that kind of fills us with a bit of maybe confidence. I was also curious what all of you think about maybe art in general. Like, where do you see it now in the world? Have you given it any thoughts? Like, what do you think it's gonna be different, or it should be different? What are your thoughts? Jalal, would you like to join us?
Yeah, well, the artistic landscape's changed. I don't think it's going to go back to how it was before. And a lot of the people haven't really thought of what if something happens within this pandemic. People are just thinking about this pandemic, but something else might happen that's far more worse. I think we need to also prepare for that. Chafa was talking about the disappointment factor. I was starting 2 new projects, and now those areas are obviously off limit because of this situation. So for me as an artist, I can only speak about myself. I can't really speak about the whole landscape. But from now up until September, there's going to be nothing. I mean, I can't produce anything. The positive aspect is there is a backlog of images that I had, and maybe I can go and look at that. But I think it's going to be a quiet year for artists. I mean, for artists like me, who need to be in the field and need to be out, it's going to be a bit quiet.
Do you all think that maybe this quietness might be useful and kind of productive in a way? Because up until now, we lived in such a fast way. It's not just, artists, everyone just lived in this, everything was fast, everything needed to be done yesterday, so many projects, so many things. So I'm wondering if you're finding maybe any kind of solace in the slowness. Maybe it's not comfortable because we're not used to being slow, but maybe you are finding things in being forced to slow down.
Can I say something here? I think in that sense, this virus has done what needs to be done for arts. I think that there's something about art in our capitalist world that needed to stop. Sorry, I think there's a crisis in terms of space, in terms of having like a whole production and personas of artists that are always on the go to deliver something that should meet a deadline and that has like a huge budget and that needs a huge production. And I mean, all those ambitious large scale projects are magnificent. Personally, I also feel like I wish, for example, like I had maybe a chance to be part of this in a way, but in the same time I always doubted, like, this cannot go forever. That I think art needs to go back to being humble. I think we need more humbleness. I think that a work on paper, a drawing, a medium that can be as simple as a paper sheet, that can be transported between geographies like very easily without having to need like a huge container or whatever, like will find itself being way stronger than I don't know, like those just a multi million dollars project in a way. So maybe there's something about the art world that will clean itself from having an emphasis on um, scale, production, money, collecting, money laundry, etc., etc. And maybe we could diverge again into some kind of a humble way and give voice. I hope that the art will give voice to a beautiful production that I'm sure has been happening since forever, but to give it like an equal importance and less noise than whenever we have been seeing in the biennales and what do you call it, the fairs. I feel there has been so much noise, and in a way the fact that those things have to stop for a while is a huge breather and a huge chance for artists and for art practitioners and people who are also in the creative field, because it's not only about the production of art, it's also about the commissioners, it's about this whole ecosystem. It's not a problem for the artists themselves. I think it's even more of a problem for the whole ecosystem of art that I feel needs to change. And yes, I was in a way worried that if I represent the show, then yes, who might come and who might see it, and what about the visibility? But I feel like right now I'm more at ease that if there's something that has to be heard, it will be heard. You know, maybe what I need is this type of really dedicated, honest devotion of people who wants to listen, who wants to read, and less of a visibility, blah blah. And yeah, I mean, I'm using the term noise. I think in that sense, this slowdown had to happen. And unfortunately, we needed a virus and a pandemic to consider that there's something wrong with our time, and there's something wrong that is over us and much heavier than us, that is always telling us like how to deal with our time, or how we have to manage, and how we have to be efficient, and we have to be fast. I'm a person who works very well under pressure, and sometimes like I like when I'm super busy with so many things, but I trust that you need to give some time too, you know. Yeah, maybe it's also an invitation of considering cleaning our closets while producing art, you know, instead of just waiting for the Armageddon to come and remind us. And of course, I'm saying this not to you or just even to myself and to everyone. Like something needs to change.
Yeah, well, artists existed always and always made work regardless of what was happening in the world, you know, whether there was a fair or there wasn't a fair. I mean, there were other things similar to it, I'm sure, but artists have always made art and will be making art. I guess it's just what kind of ecosystem they're going to be doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's why I said it's more about the ecosystem more than the artist, but at the same time we cannot neglect the fact that there's a lot of artists who are very much taken by this ecosystem and almost like enslaved to it. Sometimes you're even not aware of it, and sometimes you're left without a choice, and here comes the financial aspect, etc. So there are a lot of facts that affect your art production, your persona, and how you produce. And
Chafa, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Yes, I think we're kind of coming to the end of time, and I would love to hear from Jalal and Behnoosh and Gosia, maybe before we say goodbyes, if they would like to add something.
Yes, I can add indeed agree totally with Chafa on this point. I think we are on the verge of a major, how shall I say it, natural selection of arts, art that has a merit, has good standing. It will remain, and it will be visible. It will probably not be visible very quickly, but over time it will remain, and we will revisit this time and look at it in this way. What is maybe less attractive is the fact that perhaps some of us that are not that are relying on art production financially, I mean art production as the only sole income, they might be affected in such a way that they will have to search for other ways of employment. And in this way, we might also lose a lot of artists that would be excellent in years to come, but perhaps not given a chance. That is something that happened in the past, and it will happen in the future as well. Let's hope that there will be as little victims of this situation as possible. And let's move forward.
If I can say also a few words, I think as well that as hard as the time is, especially for creative people, it is a time as well for reflection. It's very, very important. I found for myself, I so badly needed that, and I even didn't know that. So to reflect on what really matters, in not only in creating life, creating art, but in our lives. So what is really important for us, why we do what we do, what we want to express, and also from the other hand, we have witnessed, all of us, that the social media got really louder and stronger. We could witness and we could see, we could walk through a lot of well-regarded museums in the world. We could see a lot of important art talks, and in future it will be a lot of virtual exhibitions. It will definitely change in many ways with regards to creating art and why we create art. And also art will find its way to express itself, so in many ways, and it will happen in future.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Behnoosh. That's a beautiful note to almost end it. If Jalal would like to say something before we say our goodbyes.
Well, I think having a sort of like quiet phase in any practice, whether you're someone who's in the field all the time, whether it's Chafa, or unable to showcase the solo exhibit. I think there's been a point in time for every artist to stop. Not in terms of practice or being creative, but sometimes you just don't produce anything, and it's totally normal. I mean, if you look at artists like someone that I look at, like someone I'm inspired by, Edward Bertinsky, there was 2 years where he didn't produce anything because he couldn't. Sometimes it is what it is. The situation. I think we're all going to have to be patient, if we want to defeat frustration.
Yes, being patient and kind to yourself is a good thing to be now. I want to thank all of you for joining, and I'm really, really hoping to see all of you in Tashkeel sooner than later. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And before we sign off, I also wanted to remind whoever is watching that we have put together a resource kit for artists and designers. It's a live document on our website, and it's updated weekly. So do have a look. There's a lot of content that can help you with mentally or in terms of inspiration or looking at grants and things like that. And from all of us at Tashkeel, stay safe, stay sane, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was great to see you all.
Great to see you.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.